The Taxpert 2022 pension contribution app is a simple way of analysing a horribly complicated scenario. If you've got clients where working out their pension input amounts and measuring those against their annual allowances is important to you, this calculator will help enormously. And you can see on this input page that we've got columns for the current year, 22-23, but also the two previous years. And we can input earnings, other income, etc. Let me just put in figures for 22-23 and suppose that we've got earnings of £180,000, possibly other income of 30,000. And we then have to input the various pension figures. There may be a salary sacrifice element. I won't input that. This could be somebody paying into their own personal pension. So let's suppose the net payment into a money purchase or direct contribution scheme, the net payment they've made is 20,000. And we won't have contributions paid gross here, nor net pay contributions for defined benefit or money purchase. It could be that their company, if this is a director shareholder, might have paid in, let's say, another 12,000 into their own scheme. If they are in a defined benefit scheme, we'd need to input the pension input amount. Here I've got total pension input amounts of 32,000. As I scroll down, I've then got the threshold and adjusted income figures, which determine whether the annual allowance of 40,000 is tapered or not. But here, those figures determine that it's not tapered, so we've got a full annual allowance of 40, and that means that we're going to be within it. And so we bring forward the 40,000 you can input brought forward from earlier years than the three main years we're looking at, but because I haven't input figures for the other years, I've got 80,000 brought forward as well as unused 8,000 for the current year, so there's no issue. But let me, and this will just make it very simple, let me put in slightly different figures. Let's suppose that we've got earnings of 300,000 in each of the 3 years and see what that does to the figures. Well, first, as far as the current year is concerned, same pension input amount of 32,000, but because of the high levels of income, the annual allowance is tapered. And for 22-3, that'll be tapered to 4,000. For 21-2 and the earlier year would only have been 10,000, would have been 10,000. So the brought forward figures are going to be lower. And I've now got an annual allowance excess charge of 8,000. Brought forward from 2021 is 10,000, from 21-2 is 10, and from 22-3, I'm going to use up 4,000, but I'm going to have 8,000 excess charge, and that's what's got to go onto the tax return. That payment allocation shows how the 32,000 is using the current year's 4,000 and the two previous years 10,000, and that's all there is to it. So that shows us there are various other things there which I won't talk about on this presentation, but it's this key point here, and the calculator tells me that I've got to put that in the additional information section of this personal tax return, box 10 of page AI4, and pay tax on it. One or two other points. We've got a client report here showing the amount of estimated tax on the excess charge, so a full analysis that you can show the client. And of course, we've got the tax calculations. I won't go through that in detail, but that shows what we've got there. But there are a couple of further advantages to this app. A defined benefit pension input amount estimator. And if we were looking at a defined benefit scheme, then putting in the various figures here will determine what the pension input amount would be under particular assumptions that we're making. And Again, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but the other tab that you might find useful is the Scheme Pays tab. So we can work out how much of any excess allowance charge we might be able to get the pension scheme trustees to pay. And I've also got the calculation for each of the 2 years, so one for 21-2 and the other for 22-3. And in this particular case, mandatory scheme pays would apply, and that 3,600 could be paid by Royal London or whoever it is that you're paying the contributions to. Well, it is a horribly complicated area, and I'm simply showing you here how very easily we can input the figures and then determine what the advice is that we should give to clients. And that will save an inordinate amount of time in terms of the work that you would otherwise have to do, and will also act as a check on, say, the work done by an independent financial advisor. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find that useful.